Right. So today we are going deep into the world of Elon Musk. We're going to go beyond the headlines with him. We're really going to dig into some of the more fascinating and lesser-known aspects of his companies and his work and the ripples they create. And we've got a ton of sources here, everything from Wikipedia articles on Tesla criticism, Musk's political activities, the Musk Foundation, OpenAI, SpaceX, Starlink's use in the Ukrainian war, Tesla Energy, Musk's wealth, and his overall views.
So a very wide range of topics.
And what we're really after are those aha moments.
Yeah.
The nuggets that you don't find in your typical newsfeed.
Yeah, like the fact that one of Tesla's factories is literally a fabric building.
Right.
Like, what? A fabric building.
Well, and some of the controversies are really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Let's start with Tesla. Now, most people associate Tesla with electric cars.
Of course, yeah.
But they're also doing some really interesting things in the clean energy space, right?
They are. Tesla Energy is a huge part of their business. So, yeah, they're selling electric cars, but they're really providing an entire ecosystem of clean energy solutions. So you've got solar panels, solar roof tiles, designed to be like seamless with your home, and then energy storage systems like the Powerwall for your home and the Megapack, which is for utility scale projects.
Okay.
And those are essentially giant batteries that can store energy generated from solar or wind power and then just release it when it's needed.
Well, I remember reading about a Megapack battery fire in Australia a while back.
Yeah.
Was that a sign of some underlying problem with the technology?
Well, the investigation concluded that it was probably a cooling system fault that caused that.
Okay.
But it did kind of bring to light some of the potential risks involved in these large-scale battery systems.
Yeah.
And that wasn't Tesla's only legal challenge when it comes to their energy ventures. Back in 2019...
Oh, really?
Walmart filed a lawsuit against Tesla over fires related to their solar panel installations.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they claimed that Tesla's installations were faulty and posed a fire hazard. They ended up settling that lawsuit, and Tesla actually launched Project Titan, which was a nationwide effort to replace potentially defective parts in those solar panel systems.
So I had no idea about any of that.
Yeah.
Huh. It seems like they've had their fair share of bumps in the road along the way. And speaking of bumps, weren't there issues with their cars too? Like claims about self-driving capabilities that didn't quite live up to the hype?
Yeah, the claims about their full self-driving capability have definitely landed them in some trouble.
Yeah.
There have been a number of lawsuits alleging that they misled consumers, essentially, that they overpromised what the technology could actually do. And then beyond just the marketing, there have been a number of incidents and investigations related to accidents where the autopilot or the full self-driving features were engaged.
So it's not truly self-driving then?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Their system is classified as a level 2 advanced driver assistance system, which basically means that it can assist with certain driving tasks.
Okay.
But the driver still needs to be fully attentive and in control at all times. And I think that's where a lot of the criticism comes from, is that name, full self-driving, is very misleading.
Yeah, it sounds like they're pushing the boundaries of technology, but maybe not always getting it quite right.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder what their long-term strategy is, especially with all these legal challenges.
Yeah. I think a key question that comes out of all of this is, are they prioritizing innovation over everything else, even safety? Are they pushing the boundaries too quickly?
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of questions that regulators and consumers and investors are all grappling with right now.
And this is just Tesla.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on SpaceX and Starlink.
Okay.
Okay, let's shift gears and blast off into space a little bit. SpaceX's Starlink project, with its thousands of satellites beaming the internet down to Earth. That's some pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is mind-blowing. So what they're doing is they're aiming to provide global internet coverage with this.
Wow.
Particularly in those remote areas where traditional internet infrastructure is lacking. As of May 2024, they had launched over 6,000 satellites.
Wow.
And the project is generating billions of dollars in revenue.
Well, and I also remember Starlink getting caught up in the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And how did a private company like that end up playing a role in a war?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Yeah. The lines start to blur. So Starlink terminals were provided to Ukraine early in the conflict. And they became absolutely crucial for communication, especially because Russia was targeting Ukrainian infrastructure.
Wow.
However, there was some controversy when Elon Musk allegedly restricted Starlink access near Crimea. And so it really kind of raised questions about whether a private company should have that much control over a wartime situation.
Right. And then wasn't there also that claim that came out in Walter Isaacson's biography of Musk? That Musk actually ordered Starlink to be shut down to prevent a Ukrainian attack.
Right. And so Isaacson later walked that back a little bit.
He did, yeah.
The initial claim was that Musk was afraid that the attack would escalate the conflict and potentially lead to nuclear war. But Isaacson later clarified that Musk didn't actually shut down Starlink, but rather refused to authorize an expansion of the system that would have facilitated the attack.
Gotcha.
But even with the clarification, I think the incident highlights the complex ethical considerations that come up when you have private companies involved in these international conflicts.
And what's even crazier is that there are reports of both sides of the conflict.
Exactly.
Using Starlink.
Both sides. It's a stark reminder that technology doesn't exist in this vacuum. It can be used for good or for bad. And in this case, it's being leveraged by both sides in a very real conflict. So I think it begs the question, what is the role of private companies in international affairs, especially when it comes to technologies that can have such a profound impact? How do you ensure accountability and ethical considerations in those situations?
It's a lot to unpack, and we're just kind of scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
But speaking of shaking things up, Musk's political activity has also been making waves. He's been known to kind of flip-flop on his political allegiances, and his Twitter presence, well,
we just say lively.
Very lively. Well, he has described himself as a moderate, but he's also made donations to both Democrats and Republicans and has expressed support for politicians on both sides of the aisle. So he's criticized government bureaucracy, regulations, and he is not afraid to voice his opinions, no matter how controversial.
Yeah, his Twitter feed is definitely a roller coaster ride.
It is.
But one of his more, I guess, interesting political ventures is the creation of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. What's the story there?
So DOGE was launched in 2025 with the stated goal of streamlining government operations. Musk is leading this initiative, and he's assembled a team of engineers and data scientists to basically tackle what he sees as inefficiencies and outdated systems within the government.
That sounds ambitious. I've also heard some concerns about DOGE.
So, something about potential conflicts of interest and even whispers of a constitutional crisis.
Well, DOGE has attracted a lot of criticism. Some people are concerned that Musk's involvement gives him too much influence over government processes, and that his personal views could shape the direction of the initiative. There are also concerns about transparency and accountability, especially because DOGE is operating largely outside of traditional government oversight.
So didn't a federal judge actually block DOGE from accessing certain systems at one point?
There was a case where a judge temporarily blocked DOGE's access to Treasury Department payment systems because there was concern that DOGE and its efforts to streamline processes might gain access to sensitive financial information without proper authorization or oversight.
It all sounds very cloak and dagger.
It does, a little bit.
And then what about these Doge kids I've heard mentioned? Are they actually running things over there?
So the Doge kids refers to a group of young, relatively inexperienced engineers that Musk brought in to work on DOGE. They're known for their coding skills and their willingness to work long hours. But critics have questioned whether they actually have the necessary experience and judgment to be involved in such a sensitive project.
Yeah, it's almost like you have this tech startup culture clashing with the world of government bureaucracy.
It's a very unique situation, and it remains to be seen whether DOGE is actually going to achieve its goals of modernizing government, or if it's just going to get bogged down in controversy and bureaucratic hurdles.
But it does raise this bigger question. What's the right balance between innovation and tradition? Especially when you're dealing with something as fundamental as government. That's a huge question, and one that we're probably going to be debating for years to come. But before we get too lost in those political weeds, let's talk about something a little closer to Musk's heart. Philanthropy.
Okay, philanthropy. The Musk Foundation. This is an interesting case study because on one hand, Musk is one of the wealthiest people in the world.
Right.
But his charitable giving has been relatively modest compared to some other billionaires.
I've heard that criticism before. Is he really not giving as much as he could?
Yeah.
And if so, why not?
So it's true that his charitable donations, in terms of, raw dollars, have been pretty small compared to his net worth.
Right.
But I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First, a big chunk of his wealth is tied up in Tesla and SpaceX stock, which he hasn't sold off in large quantities.
Okay.
And second, Musk has a tendency to focus his philanthropy on specific areas that are aligned with his own interests and his vision of the future.
So like renewable energy,
exactly.
space exploration, artificial intelligence, that kind of thing.
He's a big believer in using technology to solve global challenges, and his philanthropic efforts reflect that. For example, he's pledged millions to renewable energy research, he's funded a carbon capture competition, and he's donated to organizations that are working on artificial intelligence safety.
That makes sense. But I've also heard that the Musk Foundation has been criticized for mainly benefiting projects and organizations that are closely tied to Musk himself.
That's true.
Or his companies. Is there any truth to that?
There is some truth to that. A lot of the foundation's grants have gone to organizations or initiatives that are in some way connected to his ventures.
Okay.
Whether it's funding research at universities that are working on projects related to Tesla or SpaceX, or supporting nonprofits that are aligned with his interests. And this has led to some criticism that his philanthropy is more about self-promotion.
Okay.
Or advancing his own agenda rather than addressing broader societal needs.
It seems like with Musk, there's always another layer to the story, another angle to consider. But this kind of brings us to another really interesting area, OpenAI, the artificial intelligence research company that he co-founded. And they're the ones behind those incredible AI models.
They are.
Like GPT-4, DLLE, and Whisper.
Yes. OpenAI has really been at the forefront of AI research. They've developed these incredibly powerful and versatile models. GPT-4, for instance, is a large language model that can generate human quality text. It can translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and it can answer your questions in a very informative way.
Wow.
And then there's DLE, which can create realistic images and art from a text description.
Okay.
And then Whisper, which is a speech recognition system that can transcribe audio into text with incredible accuracy.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but it's real and it's happening.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, no.
It's wow.
But didn't OpenAI also go through some changes in terms of its structure and its relationship with Musk?
They did. They started as a nonprofit research company.
Okay.
But then later transitioned to what they call a capped profit model.
Okay.
Which means that they can generate profits, but only up to a certain limit. Now, this move sparked quite a bit of controversy because it raised questions about whether profit motives could compromise their mission of ensuring that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. And Musk himself has expressed concerns about the direction of OpenAI, and he actually stepped down from its board in 2018.
So he's not involved with OpenAI
I'm a formal
at all anymore. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, not formally, but he still actively comments on AI and its potential impact on society. He's spoken about the need for careful regulation of AI to prevent potential harmful outcomes, and has even suggested that AI could pose a greater threat to humanity than nuclear weapons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is a bold statement.
But I guess when you're talking about artificial intelligence that surpasses human capability, it's not something to take lightly.
No, not at all.
This whole discussion about OpenAI really does raise some important questions about the future of technology and how we manage its development responsibly.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that's only going to become more urgent as AI continues to advance at such a rapid pace.
Right.
We need to think about the ethical implications of these technologies, the potential for bias, the impact on jobs and the economy, and the risks of misuse.
Yeah, it is a lot to consider.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of daunting.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the nature of progress. It always comes with challenges.
It does.
And uncertainty.
Absolutely. And when you're dealing with someone like Elon Musk, who thrives on pushing boundaries and challenging conventional thinking, those challenges and uncertainties are amplified.
Well, on that note, let's delve into some of the controversies and contradictions surrounding Musk himself. He's not exactly known for shying away from attention.
No, he's not.
Or holding back his opinions.
That's an understatement. He's a master of attracting media attention, whether it's through his provocative tweets, his bold pronouncements, or his sometimes erratic behavior. He's been accused of being a narcissist, a manipulator, even a danger to society.
Wow.
But he also has this legion of devoted fans who admire his ambition, his vision, his willingness to defy the odds.
It's interesting because on one hand, he seems genuinely passionate about solving big problems and making the world a better place. But on the other hand, there's this sense that he's also driven by ego. And a desire to be seen as this larger-than-life figure.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. There's a complexity to his personality that's both fascinating and frustrating. He's capable of great generosity, genuine concern for humanity. But he can also be insensitive, dismissive, even cruel.
His views on social and political issues are often equally complex and controversial. He's spoken out in support of transgender rights, but has also made comments that have been widely criticized as transphobic. He's advocated for increased immigration, but also expressed concerns about the impact on national identity.
Yeah, it's almost like he's constantly grappling with these conflicting ideas and impulses, and that tension plays out in his public statements and actions.
And then there's his relationship with Twitter. Which has been a whole saga in itself.
That's saga. From his initial acquisition of the platform to the whirlwind of changes that he implemented, Musk's time at the helm of Twitter has been, chaotic.
It has.
To say the least. He's fired key employees, he's reinstated banned accounts, changed content moderation policies, and generally upended the platform in ways that have alienated a lot of users and advertisers.
Didn't he also have this big clash with the UK government?
He did.
Over Twitter's handling of misinformation during the riots in 2024?
Yeah, he did. His comments about civil war and his seeming tolerance for conspiracy theories on the platform led to a public rebuke from the UK government, who was concerned about Twitter's role in spreading false information and potentially inciting violence.
It's almost like he enjoys poking the bear. Provoking reactions, stirring up controversy. It's hard to know if it's all part of some calculated strategy or if he's just being impulsive and unpredictable.
I think it's a combination of both. There's definitely an element of showmanship to his persona, but there's also this genuine disregard for conventional norms and a willingness to speak his mind even when it leads to negative consequences.
And that, I think, is what makes him such a compelling figure. He's brilliant. He's ambitious, he's flawed, and he's often infuriating. But he's never boring.
Never boring. He's a force of nature. He's a disruptor. He's a visionary who's shaping the world in profound ways, whether we like it or not. Understanding his motivations, his contradictions, and his impact is essential if we want to navigate the future he's helping to create.
Well said. And on that note, let's keep going.
All right.
Let's continue this deep dive.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're back and ready to keep going with our Elon Musk deep dive. Before we took a break, we were talking about his personality and his impact, all the controversies. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and actually focus on some of his specific ventures and kind of the big picture questions that they raise.
Sounds good. Where would you like to start?
Well, we've talked about Tesla, we've talked about SpaceX, but there's this other one, Neuralink, that I just find really fascinating. It's that brain-computer interface company that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. They're developing implantable devices that can actually interact with the human brain.
Yeah, that's right. So Neuralink's goal is to create this high-bandwidth interface between the human brain and computers. Musk believes that this technology has the potential to, revolutionize healthcare. And treat conditions like paralysis, blindness, deafness, even neurological disorders.
I remember seeing that demo a few years ago where they showed a pig with a Neuralink implant. It's kind of freaky, but also amazing to see the brain activity being tracked in real time. But are these claims about curing diseases realistic?
Well, there is a lot of skepticism in the scientific community. The technology is impressive, for sure, but it's still in very early stages, and there are huge challenges to overcome before it can be used safely and effectively in humans. We're talking about implanting devices into the most complex organ in the human body, so the risks are substantial. And even if the technology works exactly as intended, you know, there are a lot of ethical considerations that we need to grapple with.
Like what kind of ethical consideration?
Well, I mean, for starters, who will actually have access to this technology? Will it be available only to the wealthy? You know, which could further exacerbate existing inequalities.
Right.
What about the potential for misuse? Could these devices be used for surveillance or mind control?
Wow.
Or even hacking into people's thoughts?
Like something out of, a sci-fi.
I know. And I think these are issues that we really need to start thinking about now as this technology develops, because they're not just hypothetical questions.
It's almost like we're on the verge of this whole new era of human evolution.
Right.
Where technology becomes integrated with our very biology. It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It is. And it's a good reminder that with Musk, innovation often outpaces regulation and ethical considerations.
Yeah.
You know, he tends to focus on the potential benefits of technology while downplaying or even dismissing the risks. And I think as a society, we need to have these tough conversations and figure out some safeguards to ensure that these technologies are used responsibly and ethically.
So Neuralink definitely falls into that disruptive technology category.
It does, for sure.
But let's circle back to something we talked about a little bit earlier. Musk's philanthropic efforts through the Musk Foundation.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's very focused on specific areas, especially those related to his own companies and interests.
Right. And, you know, critics argue that his giving is too narrow.
Okay.
And that it doesn't address those broader societal needs. They're pointing to the fact that a large portion of his donations go to organizations that are either directly or indirectly related to Tesla or SpaceX or his other ventures.
But couldn't you also argue that his focus on areas like renewable energy and space exploration is actually tackling some of the biggest challenges facing humanity? I mean, if we don't figure out sustainable energy, if we don't find a way to like expand beyond Earth, we're kind of in trouble.
That's a good point. I mean, you know, Musk's supporters argue that his philanthropy is strategic and impactful. They say that he's using his wealth to fund solutions to these like existential threats. And they point to his investments in renewable energy research, his commitment to carbon capture technology, and his efforts to make space travel more accessible as kind of evidence of his commitment to a better future.
So it's not just about how much he's giving, but how he's choosing to direct those funds. It's a very different approach to philanthropy, one that's more focused on these like long-term, potentially transformative solutions.
Exactly. It's about leveraging technology and innovation to address global challenges. And while some may criticize his approach, I think it's hard to deny that he is making pretty significant contributions in areas that are really crucial to the future of humanity.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just about writing checks. It's about using your resources and influence to drive change.
Exactly.
And speaking of driving change, let's talk a little bit more about Tesla.
Okay.
Now, we talked about the controversies.
Yeah.
But it's also undeniable that they've played a huge role in accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles.
Absolutely. I mean, Tesla has really been a game changer in the automotive industry. They've challenged the status quo. They've pushed the boundaries of electric vehicle technology. And, you know, they've kind of made electric cars cool. Desirable. And that has had this ripple effect throughout the industry, forcing traditional automakers to take electric vehicles seriously and actually invest in their own EV programs.
I remember when electric cars were seen as these like clunky, impractical things. And now they're sleek, high-performance machines that can go toe-to-toe with gas-powered cars. And Tesla deserves a lot of credit for that.
They do.
Shift in perception.
And I think their impact goes beyond just the cars themselves. You know, they've also invested in charging infrastructure, making it easier for people to charge their EVs. And they've been really vocal advocates for renewable energy policies, kind of pushing for a transition to a cleaner, more sustainable transportation system.
So Tesla's not just a car company. It's almost like a movement, a catalyst for change in the way we think about transportation and energy.
That's a good way to put it. They've certainly sparked a revolution in the automotive industry, and their influence continues to grow. But of course, it's important to remember that they're not without their critics.
Right. We've talked about the issues with their self-driving claims and their manufacturing quality and all the legal challenges they faced. But I guess that's often the case with companies that are really pushing.
Yeah, that are pushing the envelope.
The envelope like that.
Right. There are going to be bumps along the way.
Bumps in the road.
Exactly.
Okay, so Tesla gets a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Innovation, controversy, and a whole lot of ambition.
Definitely a lot of ambition.
But let's not forget about SpaceX.
Yeah.
Their whole mission of making space travel more accessible
Yeah.
and ultimately colonizing Mars. I mean, that's some seriously big picture thinking.
That is some seriously big picture thinking. I mean, they've been pioneers in the commercial space industry. They've developed these reusable rockets that have significantly reduced the cost of launching payloads into space. They've sent astronauts to the International Space Station. And now they're working on developing a spacecraft capable of transporting humans to Mars.
The Starship program.
Yeah.
Right. That giant rocket.
That giant rocket. It looks like something straight out of a movie.
I know.
I know. It's crazy.
It does.
So Starship is designed to be fully reusable and capable of carrying up to 100 people to Mars. It's still in development.
Okay.
But it really represents, I think, Musk's vision of making humanity a multi-planetary species.
That's a bold vision.
It is. It is.
And one that's attracted a lot of attention, both positive and negative.
Yeah.
I mean, some people think it's a pipe dream. Other people see it as the next giant leap for humanity. Where do you stand on all that?
I mean, I think it's an incredibly ambitious goal, and, you know, it faces like immense technological and logistical challenges. But I also think it's important to have those kinds of aspirational goals to like push the boundaries of what's possible. Whether or not SpaceX succeeds in colonizing Mars, their efforts are definitely pushing the boundaries of space exploration and are inspiring a whole new generation of scientists and engineers.
I think that's a good point. Even if we don't achieve those really grand visions in our lifetime, the pursuit of them drives innovation.
It does.
And progress.
Absolutely.
And it's that spirit of innovation, that kind of relentless drive that I think defines Elon Musk.
I completely agree. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying that he's a force to be reckoned with. He is constantly pushing boundaries, challenging convention, shaking things up. And I think that's something we need, even if it sometimes comes with controversy and a little bit of chaos.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. From the specifics of his companies to the bigger questions about his impact on technology, on society, on the future. What are your kind of final thoughts on Elon Musk?
You know, I think he is such a complex and contradictory figure who kind of embodies both the best and the worst of our current technological era. He's brilliant, he's ambitious, he's driven, but he's also reckless, impulsive, and sometimes, you know, even cruel. He's a visionary who sees a future that few others can even imagine, but he's also a disruptor who can be indifferent to the consequences of his actions.
Right.
Ultimately, I think his legacy is going to be debated for decades to come.
That's a great way to sum it up. He's just this fascinating case study.
He is.
And one that I think will continue to captivate us and confound us for years to come. Okay, so we spent all this time exploring all these different aspects of Elon Musk, the innovator, the disruptor, the philanthropist, even the provocateur. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
But what does it all add up to?
I think, you know, the key takeaway here is that Musk is just this walking paradox.
Hey.
He embodies, you know, the contradictions of our time, right? This incredible potential of technology, but also, you know, all these unforeseen consequences, the drive for progress butting up against these ethical concerns, this allure of a bold vision, but the messiness of actually trying to implement that vision in the real world.
Yeah, and that tension, that tension between aspiration and reality.
Yeah.
It seems to run through everything he does.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it with Tesla, where the push for electric vehicles is admirable.
Yeah.
But then they've stumbled with quality control, these self-driving claims.
Exactly. And then SpaceX, right? The dream of colonizing Mars is so captivating. But the technical hurdles are just immense. And then, you know, you start asking these questions like, who actually gets to go?
Right.
And what kind of society are they going to build?
And then there's that whole debate about his philanthropy.
Right.
I mean, is he truly being generous, or is it more about just advancing his own interests?
Yeah.
Are his choices, you know, really strategic and far-sighted?
Yeah.
Or are they just too narrow?
I think it's so hard to separate, you know, altruism from self-interest when it comes to someone like Musk.
Right.
His giving is undeniably tied to this vision he has of the future, where technology is solving all of humanity's big problems, but whether that vision actually aligns with the needs and the values of the broader society.
Right, right.
I think that's a really important question.
That kind of brings us back to a point you made earlier about how innovation often outpaces regulation and ethical reflection. Musk really does seem to operate on that move fast and break things principle.
He does.
But what happens when the things that get broken are like societal norms or democratic processes,
right,
or even just people's trust?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
Musk's just relentless in his pursuit of progress, and that often leads him to disregard the potential downsides. His actions raise some serious questions about, the concentration of power in the hands of these tech billionaires, the blurring of the lines between private companies and government, the need for more accountability when it comes to these new technologies.
And his influence goes way beyond just his companies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his Twitter pronouncements, his, political forays, even his personal views on things like social issues, they generate headlines.
They do.
And really shape public discourse. He's become this kind of, cultural icon.
He has, and I think that speaks to his ability to really tap into this yearning for progress, for someone who's promising to solve these problems that just seem intractable to traditional institutions. But whether he can actually deliver on those promises, or whether the solutions that he's offering are really going to benefit all of us, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it does. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with more questions than answers, really. I mean, is Elon Musk a hero? Is he a villain?
Yeah.
Is he something in between? Is he leading us to a brighter future? Or is this the path to some kind of dystopia?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer.
No.
I think he's a product of his time.
Yeah.
A time that's marked by just this rapid technological change, societal upheaval, and this growing anxiety about the future. His story is still being written.
It is,
and the ending is far from clear.
Well, what is clear is that he is a force to be reckoned with. He's a catalyst for change. He's definitely a lightning rod for controversy. And whether we embrace his vision, whether we challenge his assumptions, or whether we're just watching in awe as he pushes these boundaries, there's no denying that he's leaving a mark.
A huge mark.
On the world.
One thing is for sure. He is not fading away anytime soon. He is going to keep making headlines. He's going to spark debates. And he's going to keep provoking us to think about what kind of future we want to create.
And maybe that's his most lasting legacy. He forces us to think about those big questions.
Big questions.
To really grapple with the ethical dilemmas of our time. And to take an active role in shaping the future instead of just kind of passively accepting whatever it might bring. So as you go about your day-to-day, just keep those questions in mind. What do you think about the future Elon Musk is creating? What role do you want to play in shaping that future? The answers are up to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.